Ladies and gentlemen, there is a powerful truth that often goes unnoticed in our daily lives. When God places His hand upon you, no evil formed against you shall prosper. A woman who is protected by God carries a spiritual covering that cannot be explained by logic or seen with the naked eye. She walks with unseen armor, guided by divine wisdom and shielded from people whose intentions are dark. She has unexplainable discernment. It's not something she learned from a book or was taught by others. It's an inner knowing that defies reason. She can walk into a room and immediately feel the atmosphere shift. She senses when something is off, even if everyone else is smiling and pretending. There's a spiritual radar inside her that begins to beep when someone with impure motives enters her life. She may not be able to articulate why she feels uneasy around certain people, but her spirit knows, and often with time, her instincts are proven right. This type of discernment is not paranoia or overthinking. It's a divine gift given to her by God. It protects her from getting entangled in relationships, friendships, or environments that are secretly harmful. People around her may say, "You're being too cautious," or give them a chance. But something deep within her says no. She listens to that still, small voice, because every time she's ignored it, she's ended up hurt. But when she honors it, she escapes situations that could have left her broken. This discernment also makes her uncomfortable with fake energy. She doesn't engage in gossip or drama because she can feel the toxicity behind it. She doesn't stay long where manipulation lives. Even when someone tries to mask their bad intentions with charm or good deeds, she can see beyond the surface. It's as if God pulls back the curtain just enough for her to catch a glimpse of the truth, even when others are blinded by appearances. Sometimes she even questions herself. Am I being too judgmental? Because what she feels is so strong, yet hard to explain. But time always validates her spirit. That person she avoided ends up revealing their true nature. That situation she walked away from turns out to be filled with hidden traps. She realizes again and again that her discernment is not just personal insight. It's spiritual protection. She doesn't need long explanations or elaborate proof to trust what she feels. That discernment is a divine shield that warns her before danger gets close. It's not a loud alarm but a quiet tug in her heart, guiding her steps, preserving her peace, and steering her away from evil in disguise. And the more she trusts it, the more God sharpens it. She may not know the full reason why she feels something isn't right, but she knows better than to ignore it, because her spirit has never lied to her. People with bad intentions leave her life suddenly. It happens without much effort on her part. She doesn't always have to confront, argue, or plead. Things simply fall away. Relationships that once felt necessary begin to dissolve. Friends she thought would be with her forever begin to distance themselves. At first it might feel confusing or even painful, especially when she doesn't understand why certain people pulled away. But in time she realizes that this is one of the most powerful ways God protects her. He removes what she cannot see and cuts ties she might not have the strength to cut on her own. Often these people came into her life with smiles, charm, and all the right words. On the surface they seemed like a blessing. But God sees hearts. He sees intentions. He knows the conversations that happen behind closed doors, the envy masked as support, the manipulation hidden behind kind gestures. And because He loves her deeply, He steps in silently and starts shifting the atmosphere. Communication breaks down. The connection fades. The bond weakens. And just like that, someone who once had a front row seat in her life is now watching from a distance, or gone altogether. What makes this protection so divine is how subtle and effortless it feels. She doesn't need to expose people or force them out. She doesn't have to carry the weight of suspicion or anxiety. God does the work behind the scenes. He orchestrates situations that cause separation. He reveals just enough to help her let go without guilt. And even when she doesn't understand the full picture at first, she trusts that His hand is in it. Time proves that the people who walked away, or were removed, never had her best interests at heart. They weren't equipped to handle her calling, her growth or her peace. So God did what she couldn't always bring herself to do. Sometimes it feels lonely. It may even feel like a loss. But she begins to notice something else. The more space is created in her life, the more clarity she gains. She starts to breathe easier. Her thoughts are lighter. Her emotional energy is preserved. And slowly she realizes that what she thought was abandonment was actually protection. God was subtracting the counterfeit to make room for the genuine. He was cutting ties to save her from betrayal down the line. She doesn't chase after what leaves anymore. She doesn't beg for clarity from those who walked away. She understands that when someone exits her life without reason or warning, it's often a divine act of mercy. She trusts that their absence is a sign of something far greater than her own understanding. God's hand keeping her safe from people who were never meant to journey with her for long. She feels inner peace despite outer chaos. While the world around her might be loud, unstable and filled with conflict, there is a quiet stillness within her that cannot be shaken. It's not because her life is perfect or that she's untouched by hardship. In fact, she often faces trials, uncertainty and moments where everything seems to be falling apart. But even in those moments, there is something in her spirit that whispers, "You're going to be okay." This peace doesn't come from external circumstances. It doesn't depend on how much money she has, who supports her, or how easy life is. It comes from knowing that she's protected, guided, and never alone. The storms don't scare her like they used to. She might feel the wind and hear the thunder, but it doesn't break her like it did in the past. That's because she knows the one who calms storms. Her peace is rooted in faith. It's built on trust. Trust that even when she doesn't have all the answers, she's held by a God who does. She's not walking blindly. She's walking boldly, knowing she's covered even when the path isn't clear. That's why when others are overwhelmed with anxiety, she remains centered. When others are running around trying to control everything, she's still enough to listen, to pray, to wait. People around her often ask, "How are you so calm?" And the truth is, she doesn't always know how to explain it. It's not that she doesn't feel pain or worry, it's that her peace isn't fragile. It doesn't shatter every time something goes wrong. That peace is a shield. It's the evidence of God's hand on her life. Even when she cries, she knows it won't break her. Even when things go wrong, she trusts that they're being made right behind the scenes. Her peace isn't the absence of problems, it's the presence of God. This kind of peace can't be faked or forced. It shows up when she's aligned with something greater than herself. It's what keeps her from reacting to every insult, every disappointment, every delay. Instead of lashing out or falling apart, she pauses, she prays, she remembers who she is and who she is. That deep inner calm becomes her strength. It keeps her from making decisions in desperation. It allows her to sleep well, even when life is uncertain. It gives her the ability to show grace when others expect anger, to stay hopeful when others are bitter. Her peace isn't just for her. It protects her from the influence of evil people. When someone tries to provoke her, she doesn't take the bait. When someone tries to bring drama into her life, she keeps her distance. Evil thrives in chaos, but she thrives in stillness. That peace is her protection. It tells her when to walk away, when to speak, and when to stay silent. It guards her heart from becoming hard. It keeps her soul soft and her mind clear. And as time goes on, that peace becomes one of the strongest signs that God is with her. Because in a world full of noise, unrest and emotional confusion, she carries something rare, an unshakable peace that only divine protection can provide. She's surrounded by unexpected favor. It's not always something she asks for, and often it's not something she even sees coming. Opportunities seem to find her. Doors open that she didn't knock on. People show up to support her without being asked. Sometimes she's offered positions she never applied for, given resources she didn't chase, or granted second chances she didn't expect. To the outside world it looks like luck or coincidence. But to her, it's a quiet reminder that she's walking under divine favor, that God is going ahead of her, making ways where there were none. This favor doesn't mean she hasn't worked hard or faced setbacks. In fact, she's often had to endure more than others just to get where she is. But despite the difficulties, favor follows her. Things eventually align for her good. The timing works out in her favor. People who don't even know her speak well of her, offer her help, or give her platforms to grow. There's a supernatural element to her progress. She may not be the loudest or most connected, but somehow she's chosen, noticed, and elevated because God is her promoter. This favor also acts as a shield against evil. There are people who've tried to block her path, spread lies, or hold her back, but somehow their efforts never stick. God reroutes her around their traps. He blinds the enemy and confuses their plans. What was meant to harm her ends up blessing her. People who tried to overlook her end up needing her. Individuals who meant to discard her end up regretting it. That's not her doing. It's the evidence of divine protection through favor. God uses even the opposition to push her forward. She walks into rooms and finds kindness in the most unlikely places. There are moments when someone fights for her behind closed doors. When she's misunderstood, there's always someone who steps in to clarify and defend her name. She doesn't always see these things happen, but the outcomes speak volumes. Favor surrounds her like a shield. It shows up when she needs it most, when she's tired, when she feels forgotten, when she's ready to give up. That's when God reminds her that He has placed people, resources, and solutions in position long before she even knew she needed them. What others chase she attracts, not out of arrogance but because she walks in alignment with God's will. She doesn't have to manipulate, compete, or compromise to be blessed. She stays faithful, and favor follows. And when others wonder why she keeps rising despite setbacks, why her name keeps showing up in positive spaces, why people trust her so easily, it's because of this divine favor. It cannot be bought or faked. It's something that surrounds a woman when she's covered by God. This favor doesn't eliminate all challenges, but it changes how she moves through them. It makes her steps lighter and her spirit calmer. It creates opportunities in the middle of opposition. It makes people say yes to her when everything else pointed to no. It places her in rooms her resume didn't qualify her for. It protects her from being taken advantage of or held back by others' jealousy. Favor makes sure that even when evil people try to shut her out, they can't keep her from what God has ordained for her. It's invisible, undeniable, and unstoppable. God exposes lies and deception around her. What others try to hide eventually comes to light when it concerns her. She may not go digging or looking for evidence, but somehow the truth always finds its way to her. It might be through an accidental slip of words, a sudden revelation, or a moment of divine clarity. Things that were done in the dark, conversations that happened behind her back, and motives that were disguised with smiles eventually unravel. She doesn't have to go looking for the truth, because God brings it to her in perfect timing, not to destroy her, but to protect her from deeper harm. At first, the exposure may sting. The betrayal might come from people she trusted deeply, those she gave her time, love, or energy to. But instead of letting it break her, she sees the blessing in the revelation. She begins to understand that it's better to know the truth than to live in illusion. What seemed solid was never real. What felt safe was only a mask. And though the truth may hurt, it heals her in the long run. God removes the blindfold so she can make better decisions, walk away from dangerous connections, and regain her power. She may even reflect on moments when her spirit felt uneasy. Those subtle red flags she ignored, those quiet warnings she brushed aside. But once deception is exposed, everything begins to make sense. The inconsistencies, the shady behavior, the gut feelings, all of it aligns with the truth that's now revealed. And she doesn't take it lightly. She knows that God didn't show her the truth to humiliate others, but to elevate and protect her. He loves her too much to let her stay surrounded by lies. What's even more powerful is that the exposure often comes at just the right moment. Before a major decision, before she invests more, before she gives away a piece of her heart, or her time that can't be returned. The timing is divine. God allows her to see just enough to walk away with wisdom, not bitterness. He uncovers just enough to strengthen her discernment, without making her hardened or distrustful of everyone. She learns to trust the process, to thank God not just for what He gives, but for what He reveals and removes. There's also a sense of peace that comes after the exposure. She stops second-guessing herself. She no longer wonders if she was overthinking or imagining things. The truth confirms what her spirit already knew, and that confirmation brings closure. It may not always come with an apology or explanation, but it brings clarity, and that clarity is powerful. It gives her the strength to stop entertaining toxic energy, and to start focusing on what truly aligns with her purpose. Evil people may try to deceive her with charm, kindness or fake support, but God doesn't let those illusions last long. He tears down the facades, even if they've been carefully built. No matter how much someone tries to manipulate or pretend, the truth has a way of rising to the surface when she's under divine protection. And she learns to stop mourning the exposure and start celebrating it. Because each time it happens, it's a reminder that God is actively watching over her, filtering her circle, and preserving her future. She quotes drawn to solitude and prayer. There's something sacred about the way she seeks silence, not because she's antisocial or disconnected from the world, but because she understands that her greatest strength is found when she's alone with God. In a world that constantly demands her attention, pulls her in 1,000 directions, and tempts her with distractions, she knows the value of stepping away. She intentionally creates space for prayer, reflection and quiet moments, where she can hear God's voice more clearly than the noise of people's opinions or the chaos of life. This desire for solitude isn't about isolation. It's about connection. It's during these moments that she finds direction, clarity, and peace. When others are rushing to post, respond, argue, or impress, she retreats into stillness and listens. She doesn't rely solely on external advice or validation to make decisions. Instead, she consults with God first. She pours out her fears, her questions, her hopes, and her burdens in prayer. And in return she receives wisdom, reassurance, and the strength to move forward with confidence. In those private moments, she's being fortified. Evil people can't reach her there. Their manipulation loses its grip when she's covered in prayer. Their schemes fail when she's aligned with divine wisdom. Her spiritual sensitivity is heightened in solitude. She picks up on things others miss. She discerns more, feels more, and sees beyond the surface, because she is attuned to a higher frequency. This is where her true power lies, not in being loud or visible, but in being deeply rooted in faith. The world may misunderstand her withdrawal. Some may think she's distant, guarded or even cold. But she's not running from people. She's running toward God. She's protecting her energy, her mind, and her spirit. She's making sure that what enters her heart is filtered through prayer. She knows that if she's not anchored in truth, she can easily be swayed by the lies of those who smile in her face, but secretly wish her harm. In prayer she finds a mirror that reveals not just what others are doing, but who she's becoming. She's corrected, strengthened, and reminded of her identity. She doesn't need the noise of the crowd to know her worth. The quiet reassures her that she's loved, chosen, and equipped. And when she reemerges from her solitude, she is stronger, wiser, and more unshakable than before. Evil people thrive in confusion, distraction and noise, but she lives in clarity, presence and peace. Her time in solitude becomes a spiritual armor, making her less reactive and more intentional. She doesn't respond to every attack or fall for every flattery, because she's already had her soul affirmed in prayer. What others call overthinking, she calls discernment. What they call over spiritual, she calls necessary. And so she keeps returning to that sacred space. Not just when she's desperate, but daily. Not just when she's broken, but even when things are going well. Because she knows that every victory, every insight, and every step of protection begins in that quiet place, where it's just her and God. She walks away from what doesn't align with her spirit, even when it's tempting, even when it looks good on the outside, and even when others don't understand why she's letting it go. If it doesn't feel right deep in her soul, she turns away. This isn't weakness or indecision. It's strength rooted in spiritual maturity. She's learned through experience that just because something is available, doesn't mean it's meant for her. Just because someone shows interest, doesn't mean they have good intentions. She listens to her inner voice, one shaped by prayer, discernment and divine guidance, and she obeys it without needing approval. There were times in her life when she stayed too long, when she ignored that nudge in her spirit, when she silenced her own intuition, because she didn't want to hurt others or appear ungrateful. But those experiences taught her something valuable. Peace is more important than appearances. Alignment is more important than comfort. So now, when something doesn't sit right in her soul, whether it's a job, a relationship, a conversation, or even a seemingly harmless opportunity, she doesn't hesitate to create distance. She understands that not everything sent her way is from God, and the enemy knows how to disguise traps as blessings. This ability to walk away isn't always easy. Sometimes it requires letting go of things she once prayed for. Sometimes it means disappointing people, or standing alone. But she would rather disappoint others than betray her own spirit. Because every time she's tried to force something that didn't feel right, it cost her peace. It cost her clarity. It left her drained, confused and disconnected from herself. She has come to honor her spirit above temporary satisfaction. There's a calmness in her decision-making that can't be explained by logic alone. It's not that she has all the facts or proof. It's that she has a sense, a feeling, a divine signal that tells her, this is not for you. And she listens, even if she doesn't fully understand why. Time always reveals the truth. That person she walked away from, their true character eventually shows. That opportunity she declined, it turns out to be something that would have robbed her peace. That path she avoided, it was leading to a dead end. God confirms her spirit again and again, showing her that her ability to walk away is actually a gift of protection. Walking away doesn't make her cold or closed off. It makes her spiritually wise. She's not quick to cut off for petty reasons. She gives grace, she forgives, and she listens. But once she knows something isn't aligned with her values, her purpose, or her peace, she doesn't linger. She moves with quiet strength. She doesn't announce it, argue about it, or need to be understood. She just exits. And in doing so, she creates space for what *** meant for her. She makes room for what nourishes her, grows her, and brings her closer to her calling. Her ability to walk away is often misunderstood by others. They may see it as pride or fear, but they don't see the battles she's already fought, the lessons she's already learned, and the prayers that guide her decisions. She's not living to please the crowd. She's walking in step with her Creator. And every time she honors that alignment, she is protected, uplifted, and led towards something greater. She's not afraid to lose what doesn't serve her, because she trusts that God will never let her miss what's truly hers. She receives warnings in her spirit before danger comes. It's not always something she can explain logically or prove with evidence, but it's a deep knowing that something isn't right. This inner alert system is more than intuition. It's spiritual discernment. Long before something harmful reveals itself, her spirit begins to shift. She may suddenly feel uneasy around a person she once trusted, uncomfortable in a situation that seemed harmless, or resistant to an opportunity that looks perfect on paper. It's not fear, but a quiet divine nudge that whispers, "Be careful." And when she listens, she finds that she has avoided pain, betrayal or chaos, that would have taken a toll on her peace and purpose. These warnings often come in subtle ways. A conversation might leave her feeling drained, even if nothing offensive was said. A person's energy may feel off, even if they're smiling. Plans that once excited her suddenly feel heavy. She can't always point to a specific reason, but her spirit knows. She's learned over time not to ignore that still, small voice, because the moment she silenced it in the past caused her deeply. Whether it was heartbreak, wasted time, or emotional confusion, now she honors that voice. She gives herself permission to step back, reflect, and even walk away, without needing a dramatic reason. God doesn't always show her the full picture right away. Sometimes He only gives her a glimpse, just enough to pause, to ask questions, to stay alert, and that's enough. She doesn't wait for proof when her peace has already left the room. She's not paranoid, she's prepared. That preparation is not rooted in suspicion, but in connection with God. She has cultivated a lifestyle of prayer, worship and reflection, and because of that, her spirit is attuned to divine signals. The closer she stays to God, the more sensitive she becomes to danger, deception and misalignment. There have been moments when she couldn't explain why she backed away from a person, declined an invitation, or cancelled a plan. Others may have questioned her, or accused her of being too guarded or dramatic. But time always proves her right. That friend she distanced herself from ended up showing true colors. That event she avoided turned out to be filled with drama. That opportunity she passed up revealed hidden strings attached. God's warnings are often misunderstood by others, but she no longer needs outside validation to follow what her spirit tells her. Sometimes these warnings even come in dreams, through scripture, or through quiet moments of prayer. A certain verse might leap out to her and speak directly to a situation. A sudden heaviness may come over her, prompting her to pray when she doesn't even know what she's praying about. And then, a day or week later, the reason becomes clear. What could have caused her harm was quietly redirected or blocked altogether. That's divine protection in motion. She doesn't live in constant fear or suspicion, because fear is not from God. Instead, she lives in awareness, aware that not every smiling face is friendly, not every opportunity is from heaven, and not every path is meant for her feet. Her spirit acts as a compass, not just pointing her toward the right people and places, but warning her when she's veering off course. These warnings are acts of love, God's way of saying, "You are too valuable to walk blindly." So she listens, even when it's inconvenient, even when others don't understand, even when she has to take a step back and disappoint people, because she would rather be misunderstood than unprotected. She knows that honoring those divine warnings saves her from unnecessary heartache and keeps her aligned with her destiny. The more she listens, the more she sees how powerfully God guides her steps and shields her from what she can't yet see. That guidance is constant, personal, and irreplaceable. In the end, a woman protected by God doesn't need to announce it. Her life shows it. The peace she carries, the battles she avoids, the wisdom she walks in, and the favor that follows her are all evidence of divine covering. Evil may try to reach her, but it cannot touch what God has already claimed. Her strength comes not from striving, but from staying connected to one who sees all, knows all, and shields her from what she cannot see. She may walk quietly, but she walks powerfully, because heaven is watching over every step she takes.